global warming, or none like it hot. You're probably wondering why your ice cream went away. Well, Susie, the culprit isn't foreigners, it's global warming.
Global wobble?
Yeah. Meet Mr. Sunbeam. He comes all the way from the sun to visit Earth.
Hello, Earth. Just popping in to brighten your day. La 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 la. And now I'll be on my way.
Not so fast, Sunbeam. We're greenhouse gases. You ain't going nowhere.
Oh, ah, oh, ah, oh, God, it hurts.
Pretty soon, Earth is chock full of sunbeams. They're rotting corpses heating our atmosphere.
How do we get rid of the greenhouse gases?
Fortunately, our handsomest politicians came up with a cheap, last-minute way to combat global warming. Ever since 2063, we simply drop a giant ice cube into the ocean every now and then.
Just like Daddy puts in his drink every morning. And then he gets mad.
You know, ever since the inception of the IPCC, which is the International Panel on Climate Change from the UN, they have basically been miserable failures when it comes to predicting the global temperatures.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica show. We are chatting with Ben Davidson a little bit later. But first, the Guammy Graham.
You don't even have anything made up to go.
Nothing.
I was just waiting.
You're running out of
Waiting.
adjectives, man.
No, like listeners have sent me. I've got lists and lists, but I didn't even think about it till I was like.
Oh yeah, so we got Ben Davidson up, who has a mobile observatory looking at the sun and the solar activity, and does like a real weather and climate news every day. Suspicious observers also, so that's gonna be a fascinating chat coming up.
Yeah, it's a good one. It lines up. It's funny because it lines up with stuff we talked with Robert Schock about, Randall Carlson, Don Easterbrook. It lines up with a few chats we've had before. There's a couple nails that get another hit on the head.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, we've got our Mexican ambassador to Grimerica, RPJ. How's it going, buddy?
Hey guys, good to be back on Grimerica and on my first appearance in the year.
Yeah, no doubt. It's good to have you. It's funny. Everyone says they want more RPJ, and then we just don't have you on for 2 months.
Yeah, we've kind of lost contact for a little while. So it's good to chat with you again. And what have you been doing? You've been sort of out of touch a little bit.
Yeah, as you probably know, everybody kind of like tries to disconnect during the holiday season. I did the same, trying to since I wasn't able to go to some tropical beach. The next best thing was to try to turn off the computer, and try to enjoy some mid-space time. But also, I was doing some other new things, For example, when you guys had your chat with Randall Carlson on the 21st, I was actually on my way to the city of Teotihuacan to be allegedly to be part of something that may or may not have had involved psychedelics.
Nice.
What sort?
We were talking about that. I forgot all about it though, and here we are asking for listeners like to send in their psychedelic experiences, and we've got a lot. We've got Red Pill Junkie to talk about his first one ever, I believe, eh?
Yes, my first one ever.
If it happened, because you mentioned allegedly, so I don't know.
Yeah, because this may just be a figment of my imagination. You know what I mean? Wink, wink.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, so tell us.
Well, do you guys remember our friend Erika? You know, the girl we all met in Minneapolis on the first Paradigm Symposium. You know, the girl who is from Mexico but is now currently living in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, your photographer friend.
Exactly. So
Yeah, we should
she got me in contact with a group of people who regularly do ceremonies with a shaman from the Huichol, people. The Huichols are they go by the name Huixárrica, are a group of indigenous people that live here in Mexico in what will be the southeast of the country, primarily in the states of Jalisco, Nayarit, and also Guanajuato.
Can you spell Huichol? Can you spell Huichol for us?
Yes, HUICHOL.
Wait! Don't backspace. What did you have?
WITCHALL.
Watch.
Huichol.
WATCH.
No,
Huichol.
No, it'd have to be WHICH.
No.
No, witch as in
W.
like witch with a hat
H.
riding a broom.
H.
I thought it was
Yeah.
like Huichol.
No, it wasn't a witch. You know, there were no brooms or women with green skin involved.
Okay, so Huichol. Okay.
Yeah, well, let me use the goddamn Skype message too. So that's. Did you see that? The word?
Oh, well, I got it after you spelled it. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because sometimes it's hard for me to find it afterwards to put it in the notes.
Yeah.
Huichol.
Do you guys remember how I always wear whenever I would go to Paradigm, I wear these very colorful like bracelets, you know, that are made of very small plastic beads.
Yep.
With all these, you know, very interesting geometric patterns. Those are actually made by Huichol artisans. You know, I've always been fascinated by their culture, by their art, you know, and those geometric patterns are inspired by their psychedelic experiences that are induced by what they call hikuri, which is nothing but the peyote cactus.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
So these people invited me to this ceremony, and you know, after thinking for a while, you know, I decided to attend. You know, to go and finally walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. You know, I mean, I thought that it was only fair. You know, after becoming something of a very online activist or advocate for the sovereign, you know, right of every adult to explore their consciousness using entheogenic substances. You know, I think it was, you know, by now it was high time to go and try it for myself. You know, to try these very interesting, fascinating world of psychedelics. You know, and I also thought that this was, you know, just the kind of thing that I wanted to try for my very first experience, you know, doing it in a very ritualistic, you know, very ceremonial, in a very ceremonial fashion, you know, and taking the substance with the proper respect, you know, almost, literally as a sacrament.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So how did it go down? Like, did you guys sit in a circle? Like, you got there? Walk me through it.
Yeah, I got there. I got to the place where the ceremony was going to be celebrated. I actually got there pretty early, you know, carrying my backpack and my sleeping bag because I thought that, you know, after the ceremony was over, we were all going to have to sleep and all that. And all the people who were going to be part of the ceremony, they all came more or less on the same group, right? So these people, they seem to know each other for a while back, So after they arrived and we started to prepare the place, where the ceremony was going to take place, these like medium-sized cement circle where there was, like a place in the center where a fire could be lit or prepared, something that caught my attention about the whole thing is there really was a lot of ritual involved, about things like, using a candle in which every attendant had to like tie a little like colored ribbon around the candle, using a needle and a thread that would something like kind of represented, I don't know, your life or your intention, something like that.
Wow.
And there was also a lot of chanting involved, a lot of, beating the drums, a lot of, there is a word that we use in Mexico called limpia, that is often employed with this kind of indigenous ceremonies, and with limpia is like something like a cleansing, that the intention is not only to have, a quote unquote trip, but also to use these ceremonies as some kind of cleansing of your spirit, your body, your soul, if you like, So there was also a lot of that. It was very fascinating to see this like very interesting syncretic juxtaposition between these ancient indigenous beliefs, and there's also obviously colored with some elements from Christianity, for the things that have been introduced by the Spaniards and the Catholic, the Catholic priests and all that. So the ceremony officially started at 10 p.m. at night, but we were all gathered in the circle, and and I was writing everything in my little logbook. For a while people thought that I was some kind of anthropologist, because I was just so I was jotting everything there in my notes, and then they passed a small like piece of a fresh peyote cactus, and after you eat it down, and I was kind of expecting, I read and I have heard that the taste of peyote is incredibly bitter, it's a very nasty taste, but it wasn't really that bad, and even though that they had passed also small pieces of orange, to help you with the bitterness of the peyote, but like I said, it wasn't really that bad. And then it was, just a matter of like waiting, to see what would happen. And meanwhile, while we waited, there was this like periods in which the shaman and the people of the witches called their shamans by the name of Maracame, the shaman and his wife and his oldest son, the girlfriend of the oldest son, and also the younger son. They were all performing a group of chants and I don't know, speaking things in their native tongue. And after they will stop, then it was the turn for the rest of the group, to also sing if you knew any songs, to beat drums. Some people were carrying musical instruments like drums and all and that kind of thing. So it was a very active and very communal thing. It wasn't just about eating down the thing and go and walk there by yourself, and to have your own personal private experience. It was definitely something of a very how do you call it? Collective thing. It wasn't really the thing about, just you by yourself. The people there, made us know that we were really have to do a very to participate in the whole thing, to make sure that the energy, quote unquote, will be flowing and revolving around a group of people.
Yeah.
But after the actual fresh peyote, they also passed on, cups with mescaline, this like the pulverized form of peyote, that they make out of the dry cacti,
See, I've never tried that shit. The closest I can relate is remember in like Young Guns when they all eat the peyote, all like fucking shooting shit. And how long did it take before you came around? Like, was it like you must have been like fucking nervous?
It's funny because I decided to attend this from late October, because Erica told me about this, since we went to Paradigm. So I had 3 whole months to prepare myself, both, physically, well, I don't know, to try to get a sleeping bag and all that kind of thing, to try to work out the logistics of going there, know how I will get there, the place where it will be and all that kind of thing. And also, to mentally prepare myself, and about finally going through taking this first step. And it was ever present on my mind, during all that time. But then by the time it was, I was really, they passed me the thing and I was like, oh, so this is it? Oh, wow, admiring the green translucency of the thing. I was surprised that I wasn't really that nervous, I was like, okay, let's go,
Nice.
Attaboy.
But let me tell you that even though I ate the fresh piece of the cactus and I drank 3 whole glasses of mescaline, I think that nothing happened.
Really?
That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was kind of a failure to launch. I really didn't have this kind of wild, the kind of visual hallucinatory experience that I was kind of expecting after reading the webpage of Airweed, the kind of where I investigated the kind of the things that one can expect from ingesting mescaline. And no, I have to say that I really didn't have that kind of experience, and I also didn't have some kind of the thing that I really wanted to have. I really didn't go there for a fucking light show. To be honest, I was searching for something more transcendental, something more mystical, and I really feel that it didn't actually happen. Maybe I needed to increase the dose of medicine, as they keep calling it. And during the ceremony, they passed on the glasses with the mescaline and say, okay, take it and cure yourself, right? And something that I found is that each new sip of mescaline was even harder than the first one. That it became harder and harder to drink it and to will myself to gulp it down. Because really the taste was becoming quite unbearable. And I also noticed that many of the attendees, and these were seasoned people who had done these kind of ceremonies for many times. Many of the attendees were vomiting, which was kind of surprising to me, because I always assumed that that kind of purge, was only associated with ayahuasca ceremonies. That's where you have you have heard that people who drink ayahuasca, they often, they suffer from diarrhea and they puke for several hours, and they see that as a purification of your body. There is, like they say, a purge. Not only of your mind, but also there is a physical evacuation of toxins. So, and I also saw that among some of these attendees.
So what about just some elation or cosmic love feelings? Do you have any of that?
I tried to, I was trying to be in some kind of mental state of, rest and mental state of, receptivity, even though I was keep trying to write down my impressions. Another thing that I should also point out is that next to us, there was this, Christmas party that was happening, just like a throw stone away from us, with the most god-awful, nasty reggaeton music you can ever imagine, So it was kind of annoying that you want to be all ceremonial and shit, here with the drums and the shaman chanting, and then you trying also, around being gathered around the fire, and next to you there's like chaka 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 chaka. They was like, fuck, give me a break, Some people kind of felt that also got in the way, of the ceremony. But after a while, and I think that this was like my most introspective I ever got to this during the whole night, because the thing lasted, from 8 p.m. From the first day to the coming of the sun, the next morning. So, but getting to this moment of introspection, I kind of had something of an epiphany, a realization that, in a way, that nasty party with techno music, it was kind of perfect in a way, because it became the perfect allegory for the stridency and the loudness of the modern world we inhabit. Because whether we like it or not, we are living in the 21st century. We are part of this modern civilization. So on the one side, you have, all the distractions and all the loudness and all the temptations, you want to call it like that, of the modern world. And on the other hand, you have these people who are trying to preserve this ancient tradition, this song or this call to have some kind of restoration of the relationship between man and nature, between man and trying to find a balance between human beings and the natural order, So that's when I realized that it was only fitting to have the nasty reggaeton music there, because then if it wasn't there, then it wouldn't have been much of a merit. You know what I mean? I mean, what I try to say is that, if the ceremony had happened 2,000 years ago, and there was nothing but the sound of the drums, and there was nothing but the lights of the fire in front of us, then sure you can have the goddamn psychedelic experience and what else. But like I said, whether we like it or not, we are living in this world, and if we are going to try to pursue some kind of spiritual path of some kind, it's going to be inside this modern world,
Yeah, I think, maybe, do they do that often, or how often do they do that? The festival or whatever you went to?
Well, they keep telling me that they do these types of ceremonies quite often. I think they're going to have one later this month, but it's going to be and where they live, that is in the state of Guanajuato. And they're inviting me to it, but I'm not sure if I will be able to attend. Like I said, this last thing, it was everything came together quite nicely. It happened on a Saturday. It happened, by the end of the December. When you don't have a lot of work, and it happened relatively close to where I live in. So that's what I took the decision to attend in the first place. If they had told me that this was some place like 100 or 200 miles away from me, I might have not gone there.
Yeah, I'd go and try again. I know I've talked to some people who didn't have any luck with their first experience with different things like LSD and mushrooms and things like that. Not myself.
Yeah, I know.
Every time I tried something for the first time, I was fucked.
Yeah, I remember reading in Dennis McKenna's book, The Brotherhood of the Screaming Abyss, that when he first tried ayahuasca, he also failed to have a trip. It was only until the second time he tried, or the third even, that he managed to break that barrier.
Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's maybe if something too intense would have happened, it might have set you back. Now you can sort of continue on your journey and explore different ones, maybe, and try that one again.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've been disappointed before, like in the past, on LSD or mushrooms, when I would want to sort of have some sort of hallucination. Like I'd always hear about those stories, but I always felt it to a certain extent, but sometimes I was disappointed that nothing, crazier happened. So
like I said, I wasn't really going after some kind of interesting visual hallucination. For example, I don't know if you have ever tried to do this little experiment of closing your eyes in a room with no lights, and then trying to gently press with your fingers, your eyes,
eyelids,
your eyes,
closing them
your
shut
eyelids,
tightly.
Exactly, and then that by doing that you can start to trigger in some kind of interesting, like visual hallucination. That the proper scientific term for that is entoptic phenomena. And I've always been able to do that, even without even pressing my eyelids with the fingers, as a matter of fact. So when I was during that, I feeling a bit frustrated that, quote unquote, nothing was happening, I tried to do that, and I started to see some kind of interesting geometric patterns and all that. But then I felt that it was like forcing it. It wasn't really, flowing out naturally.
Yeah.
And that's when I desisted from doing it.
Huh. Interesting.
That's too bad, man. Well, when you come up to the igloo, man, we'll go to the mountains and eat some mushrooms and just fucking chill, just love the world. Be good.
I don't know. There is that approach, but I first wanted to do it, in this manner, with kind of like the approach from the ancient tradition, with a shaman, a guy who allegedly, is kind of like a carrier or like a conduit between our daily day world and and the quote unquote spirit world, and maybe the thing was that the whole ceremony was maybe just too ceremonious for me. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. The guys, like I said, they kept inviting me to this. Some guy even proposed that I should try ayahuasca, and I don't know. And to me, it's like, first time I'm trying to dip my toes in this pool, and now you want me to plunge into the fucking Niagara Falls. I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
Yeah, go to mushrooms next. Come here. Come visit.
I don't know. Maybe if you know what I was thinking, Graham, that maybe if I knew more about meditation and I had tried to meditate while under the influence, maybe I would have had better results.
No, you shouldn't have to. You can't force that. It should just kind of wave in. Yeah. Like it's on a beach, but the wave just keeps getting bigger and bigger and coming closer and closer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hitting you.
Yeah, but anyway, by the end of it, the whole thing ended with the rising of the sun on the winter solstice.
Nice.
And I don't know, it was, the some kind of after effects of the substance, but that was a sight to see, seeing the sun rise, and starting to light the whole world with color and shit. That was really something that I was grateful to experience.
Yeah, no doubt. Sounds fucking delightful.
Yeah, it was. So in the end, I really
on the solstice
don't
too.
I don't see this as a failure. I think in the overall it was a very, very positive experience. It was a literal journey. The whole planning, the whole thing, going all by myself. Not accompanied by anyone. Going to meet a group of complete strangers. And then finding out that the strangers were incredibly friendly, incredibly, in the same wavelength as I was. I spent hours and hours, with whole diarrhea of the mouth, talking with these people. I found them to be completely delightful. And then going through the whole ceremony and seeing, the whole aspect of it. And by the end of it, when everything was all done, the shaman going to each and every one of the attendees, and embracing it, thanking them for having participated in the ceremony. It was quite touching.
Nice.
Yeah, well, you'll have to keep us posted on how your journey progresses from here.
Yeah, I think I might want to write about it for I don't know, either a Mysterious Universe or the Daily Grail, but
or Grimerica.
Or Grimerica.
Yeah. I got some.
So
that's it, eh? All right.
Yeah, that's it.
Damn it.
UFO quote of the week.
I just like to see Graham scramble. It's hard to get him now because he's usually watching me.
Yeah, well, no.
Every once in a while, I can still catch him.
I'm just prepared. Anyways, that's the UFO quote of the week jingle. So this is
if you did that to me, I wouldn't be prepared. I'd probably just storm out of here.
A 1977 poll of American astronomers. See how that fits with the Suspicious Observer by Davidson thing? Yeah. Published in JSE, showed the following. Out of 2,611 questionnaires, 1,356 were returned. In response to whether the UFO problem deserved further study, the replies were 23% certainly, 30% probably, 27% possibly, and 17% probably not, and 3% certainly not. Interestingly, there was a positive correlation between the amount of reading done on the subject and the opinion that further study was in order. And that was from Bernard Heisch, astrophysicist. Or Heisch.
Heisch? How's it spelled?
H-A-I-S-C-H.
H-H-H-I?
H-A-I.
I think the guy is from France. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
France.
Yeah, I recognize that name. But yeah, very good quote. Yeah. And that's it's funny because that's what happens is you hear people saying it all the time. If they would just do a little bit of research, their mind might change, right? That's going for the the full on UFO deniers and stuff.
Don't be a denier. That wasn't bad.
Yeah. I got some feedback.
Seems like it's been forever since we've had a
what?
A UFO quote.
A what?
Oh yeah, no, it does because we didn't really do an intro for the bonus episode, and It's been a while since we did one, so.
Which didn't even really turn out to be a bonus episode because now this episode's 5 days later. 4
Yeah, but that's okay. But no, we're still going to squeeze out an extra one still. It'll just take a little longer than we planned.
The bonus wasn't as instant.
Yeah.
As instant as it might have came off.
So there's been a lot of feedback on lucid dreaming, which is pretty cool. Maybe we should do a follow-up episode one of these days after I've been able to master it a little bit more.
Sweet.
But yeah, Jake says, "Hey Graham, it's Jake. Amazing show. You guys blow my mind every time I listen. Really interested in the lucid dreaming. Going to start trying it. I was talking to a buddy at work. He told me about this herb called Calia, or maybe Celia Zakatachichi.
Zakatachichi?
The dream herb. Read up on it a bit. Yeah, and it was saying that people use it for lucid dreaming. So I got some. When I feel like I'm ready, I will try it. But I was wondering if you have heard about it or if you've tried it. I'm not one to try drugs. Neither am I, ever, but I'm interested. Anyways, keep up blowing my minds, guys. You guys are amazing. And thanks for that. Is that the herb you were talking about there? Weren't you talking about a tea? A tea, a dreaming tea?
Yeah, lucid dreaming tea.
Is that this?
I think that Ben from the Mysterious Universe, try some kind of Chinese herbs, to try to elucidate lucid dreamings, but I think it didn't work for him. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I remember that too. I should look that up. It's probably the same stuff, but who knows? There's probably quite a bit of it too. There's probably a lot of it that say it's going to help your dreams, and it does fuck all. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's fucking oregano or something.
Yeah, but I'll look it up and I'll give it a shot for sure. Yeah, because I mean, unless it's a drug, but I don't think it's a drug.
No, the one I seen was just like a fucking tea packet that said lucid dreaming tea. It was actually when me and my wife before we were married, we were at our social. Some friend of my aunt's gave us. She was out of town, so she said we could just stay at her house, and it just happened to be in the cupboard there.
You might have to explain that to the rest of the world and the people in Eastern Canada and the people in Western Canada that the prairie people or the northern people have these socials. Is that what it is?
The northern people? A social, yeah, it's like a stag and doe.
It's people aren't going to know what that is. It's a big party. It's like instead of going out somewhere, you have
everybody's going to know what that is.
A social? No. I didn't know what it is until a few years ago.
Oh, you're fucked.
Because a friend was from Winnipeg or something like that. Anyways, So you found out about this at a social, at a big party, basically?
No, at the house that we were house sitting.
Oh, okay. And they had this lucid dreaming tea?
Yeah.
And you tried it?
No, Lisa did.
And?
Can't remember.
Yeah, remember?
Well, there are many other things that you can try to trigger a lucid dream. One thing that to me is kind of effective is trying to keep sleeping, after the sun has already risen, So it's quite better if you do it during the weekends, Saturday or Sunday, where you can oversleep. You can try to do it, at 9 or 10 a.m., and that's when usually it can happen better than, in the early hours of the night.
Yeah. No, that's when I have my best dreams too. It's after I wake up in the morning and I go the back to bed method is what they call it. Wake back to bed.
That's what it's called, the wake back to bed method. Yeah. They couldn't come up with something simpler than that.
I'm pretty sure that's what some guys call it.
What about the WBTV?
Yeah, that's okay too.
Okay, I like that better.
Yeah. So I got some more. We got some reviews, some recent reviews on iTunes, and we want to thank everybody for doing that. Stuart James says,
as a donation.
Stuart could be. Yeah. Stuart.
It is. I just said it is.
James says, it took me a little while to warm up to their particular style, but now I'm hooked on this show. Really great guests and interviews. Oh, and the hosts are all right too. And then Examman66 says, okay, good day. How's it going, eh? And he says, the first time I heard the show, I thought, why are these guys doing Bob and Doug McKenzie impressions on a paranormal podcast? Then I realized they're actually Canadians. And they are, what does it say? And they are the only podcasters I have heard who managed to do smart, in-depth interviews while keeping a genuine sense of humor, with a U, because that's how it's spelt in Canada, eh? And they sound knowledgeable, laid back, and funny. The show is definitely in my must-listen category. So, wow, very humbling review. Thank you very much. And then Dan Thrash says, awesome show at the end. Oh, and this is a comment to the Randall Carlson interview, I think. He says, at the end, I heard him say he wanted to come back to talk about climate change and the scientific consensus. Really hoping you guys can take him up on that for a third conversation. I love listening to this guy. The guests lately have been great. I do a third shift warehouse work, and you guys get me through the night. Keep doing what you do. I'll donate when I can. That's the Dan Thrash. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Dan. You don't have to donate. You can just review. How would a review? Maybe you already did.
Yeah, well, reviews help, but they're not like a donation, buddy.
Sure they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, they are.
Are they?
Maybe not to you. Stuart donated too, so thanks, Stu.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great. So I'll save the synchronicities for the next intro.
Mm-hmm.
And I did want to say, I did want to ask you guys.
Did we remember to thank Ryan for the donation last show?
I don't
can't
think
remember
so.
if we did or not.
It feels like it's been a long time since we've done an intro. We skipped one
Yeah, it
week.
does. And then we took 2 weeks off at Christmas. And
Yeah, it's all out of whack. But
thanks, Ryan.
I feel like I'm going to repeat some stuff here, but no.
What else is new?
So we got a note from Chris Atta too. He says, "Great show. I'm a listener from AZ." He said he should be a
What's
money,
AZ, Arizona?
Arizona, yeah. I should be a money supporter, and he will be ASAP. He promises. His friend Joel is a member and has him hooked. I remember getting an email from Joel quite a few months back, and they're wondering if we've
Joel
read,
V.
yeah, probably Charles Hapgood's book on Earth shifting crust. He says Einstein wrote the foreword for the book. It's a great read, some cool info on the erratic boulders, etc. You'll dig it. Next time you're in Scottsdale, look him up. We can chill. He has a huge personal library we could dig through. So keep up the good work, Chris says. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, we'll definitely be in AZ at some point. Either going to Sedona or going to a UFO conference or going to for a golfing weekend or something like that.
Yeah, it seems inevitable. Me and the family were going to go down for Christmas, but flights were crazy.
Yeah.
But we're planning on, like, next winter, I want to ditch down for sure and escape the winter for a bit. We can go rent a little house someplace. Or
Yeah, well, no, I've got, I know somebody who's got a house
stay
in
at
Mesa.
RPJs.
Mesa's. There's a house in Mesa. friend of ours.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go, buddy.
We could meet RPJ there.
Are you going to the International UFO Conference this year, Grant?
No, I don't think so.
You don't even have to fly to Arizona, do you, RPJ? Can't you just, like, fucking...
No,
isn't it walking distance?
No, it's a long ways.
Walking distance from Arizona, yeah, right.
Quit it, Bob McKenzie.
I mean, I know that a lot of people do that, walk all the way from Mexico to the United States, but, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Do we have any synchros?
No, I'll save that for the next intro.
No synchros? I was feeling generous, too.
I know you want to play the jingle, that's all.
Yeah, I just wanted to play the
You
jingle.
can play the jingle if you want.
No, it's not the same.
All right, okay. So what else do we have to cover? Just help the show out, donate. We don't have any ads. No breaks, no corporate sponsorship, nothing like that. It's just us, and we have an expense every month.
Spread the word.
Yeah.
We don't have any advertising for ourselves either. All we have is you guys, so spread the word.
That's right. Yeah, we'd like to just cover our expenses anyway, so. Yeah, and send the feedback, synchronicities, psychedelic experiences, GRAHAM at Grimerica.com.
Yeah.
And Red Pill Junkie, we'll have to have you back when we can talk about what's new in the Fortean world and what you're writing about. Well, let's not wait so long next time.
Yeah, for sure. I've been kind of lazy lately with the blogging, but I'm hoping to catch up. Get back in the saddle as soon as I can.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys enjoy the chat with Mr. Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers. Kind of fits along with the motif so far. I guess we should have we had Moser on. He was pretty pro. That's actually pretty fitting because the last bonus episode ended with Moser fucking warning us that global warming was coming, and this guy saying...
Global warming, did you say?
Global warming?
Yeah.
And this guy saying we should be more worried about a fucking kill shot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. The sides are very far apart.
Neither sound fun.
No.
And we'll take a quick 2-minute break. Enjoy the chat. Okay, guys, in Grimerica this afternoon, we're going to be chatting with Mr. Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers. I was watching a bit of stuff on the YouTube channel last night, and I'm pretty excited. So how's it going, Graham?
Hey, Darren, I'm doing well. I'm excited for this. Excited for today. We got a double header going on here.
Is that a rambling Graham or scrambling Graham today?
Scrambling Graham today, yep. Yeah, I'm not used to this noon start, but it's good. So we've got Ben Davidson here, and he was suggested to us by a listener. Actually, this is one of those.
I think it was Hank Scorpio, but I can't remember for sure.
He's like, yeah, you got to have Ben Davidson on. So we started looking into it, and it's fascinating. He's got a Mobile Observatory Project, and they go around North America educating public and schools and stuff about solar science and climate change and this type of thing. Really fascinating, and he's got a YouTube channel called Suspicious Observers, and they basically do, news, climate change news and stuff like that with no political or corporate agenda whatsoever. So we're really looking forward to chatting with him. I mean, this has been a kind of a bit of a topic in Grimerica on and off, and we're looking forward to hearing some of the science behind it. And so we'd really like to welcome you to the show, Ben.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Very much so.
Yeah, this is kind of ironic because I think it was just a little earlier in the week we were trying to have the climate debate with another guest, and we were really kind of realizing how some people just can't even fathom what you're getting into when you start going against the grain. But I think before we got into all that, I think you wanted to get into the Mobile Observatory.
A Mobile Observatory? Yeah. I wanted to get Ben to talk about that a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the more controversial stuff later.
Sure, absolutely. The ultra quick backstory is I was in professional research one day back in 2011. I kind of had my wake up moment. I was sound asleep before then. All of us are there at one point. And so I decided that after finding it very, very difficult to find anything credible on YouTube or on the internet, or at least figure out which 1% of this information was credible and which 99% were absolute lunatics, I decided, wait a minute, this is what I'm trained to do. And so I decided to start a YouTube channel where I would do research on the things that interested me, specifically you can call it disaster science. That's a big part of it. A lot of what I focus on is on the sun, Earth's magnetosphere, and the pole shift. We also talk about climate and a number of other things. One day I looked down and there's about 150,000 subscribers. So I said, well, it's pretty much everyone's dream when they wake up to be able to kiss the corporate world goodbye and just go do what you want to do. And I'm lucky enough to have been able to do that. Right now, we have about 207,000 subscribers to the channel, and when I quit my job, December 31st of 2013, we decided that we were going to hit the road in a mobile observatory. I basically transformed a 36-foot Class A RV into a mobile science lab of sorts, and we've been going around meeting some of those individuals that watch the show, doing lectures at schools, at museums, universities, and it's really just been a lot of fun. Get to meet a lot of the scientists that I work with all over the country as well. It's been great. I'm doing it with my wife. My wife is 4 months pregnant with our first kid. We don't have the best timing in the world, and we were on the road maybe 2 months, and then boom, just kind of happened like that. And so it's my wife and I and our 2 little puppies, and we're traveling the country and having a great time doing it.
Wow, that's great.
Congratulations.
And does a lot of your stuff focus on solar aspect then? Is that a love of yours, the sun, or?
Yes. If it wasn't before, it certainly is now. I've always been interested in solar science, but until I actually decided to try to dive into it myself, much of it just seemed like it was above my head. Like, oh, this is fascinating stuff, but I'm sure it's too complex and I could never really get into it. And I'm not going to say it's easy. It took all of the research and training skills that I've been given to get where I am now, but it's not the kind of thing where it can't be understood. And one of the things, if I may toss humility to the wind for a moment, I do a pretty good job bringing it down to a level that's understandable for pretty much anyone. I do a lot of teaching to third, fourth, fifth, and sixth graders, and they seem to get it all right. So, a lot of it focuses on the sun, and of course, the sun has his hands in everything. A lot of irons in the fire, so to speak, when it comes to day-to-day weather, long-term climate, massive storm formation, earthquakes, volcanoes, even modulating how many galactic cosmic rays get into the inner solar system and reach Earth. A lot of that stuff is based on what exactly the sun is doing, and so that's pretty much the nexus of our research. Everything comes from that central point and goes out to where it's focused on.
It's kind of funny how all the like every ancient culture too used to worship the sun and kind of realize, and we've kind of gotten away from that in the modern day. You know what I mean? The sun is just kind of there. We've lost all kind of regard for how important and how big of a role it plays, and instead we focus on it must be us because we're the most important thing in the universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does your observatory have, like, I noticed on your channels there, you can see the sun through different types of lenses, I guess.
Yeah.
So is that what you do on a regular basis, is watch the sun and measure what's going on there? Because I did watch a little daily update there on the news around the world. It was great. Just a real recap of like what's going on with the sun, what's going on with the polar regions, what's going on with the storms. Like really kind of just here's how it is. You could tell there's no agenda behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when we do have a solar telescope here in the observatory.
Okay.
And that pretty much, however, only just magnifies the sun and cuts down on the glare, so you can actually see down to the surface with your, just with your bare eyes, nothing else like that, and see the sunspots. And then I usually start with that when it comes to being at schools or something, and then we go inside to a gym or an auditorium, and I show them what those sunspots actually do. And when you start showing kids pictures of explosions the size of Jupiter, which would be the solar flares.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to be standing in front of 200 kids and hear them all scream "wow" at the exact same time. It might be a little naive on my part, but I like to think there's a little love of science being born when that happens.
Oh no, that's not naive at all. I mean, I think that's fascinating. I mean, just the technology that you can now travel around North America with and show kids what's going on. It's great.
I've got a solar lens for my telescope out there, but I'm a little gun shy. I haven't got around to putting it in yet. I'm a little gun shy about looking at the sun with a telescope.
Well, what's depending on how big the actual telescope is, you can even just use a welding lens, and that'll work just fine. Before I got this telescope, I bought a welding lens. I just went to my local hardware store, picked one up, put it on the end of my binoculars. Like I just held it there with my hand. It wasn't even attached with anything. And I was able to see sunspots very, very well just with binoculars and that. So it doesn't take much to filter enough light for you to be able to look at the sun safely and be able to see all kinds of stuff that'll get your mind going and pique your interest, things like that.
Really? I'm going to have to pick up some binoculars. I'm a welder by trade, so I have no problem with the lenses. I want to see some sunspots.
Yeah, it will be very, very easy if you get any kind of binoculars or a telescope and you put that lens in front. It will filter out plenty of the light.
Maybe we could do that this afternoon.
Yeah, the sun will be gone in a couple hours, buddy. It's not.
Yeah, we only get 2 hours of sun a day in the winter, so.
So let's get into a little bit of the science about it then. We're realizing here, like we mentioned earlier, how polarized this topic is, and it's really blowing my mind. Like you've got people that we've talked to that can't even fathom that humans may not be the big cause of climate change, and then and then you've got the other side, a whole bunch of scientists coming forward saying like that we're gonna possibly be entering into a small, freeze or little, I don't know if ice age is the right word, but did this surprise you, like the polarization that this is? Like you've been into this for a couple of years now. Like do you sometimes sit back and go, wow, like am I really prepared to kind of do this battle?
something close to that. It's a lot of, wow, I can't believe how much evidence there is that is being overrun by propaganda. The mainstream propaganda pretty much just, um, acts like a bowling ball to all of the pins of evidence pointing the other direction.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
knocks them all out of the way. $30 billion a year really talks, and that is the budget that goes to basically certifying and quantifying man-made global warming. It really talks. It really does. But yeah, it can be surprising and it can feel overwhelming because there's to get a full understanding. I mean, if you really want to dive into it yourself, take some kind of ownership over what you believe and what you think, it is not. It's not a weekend retreat. It's not a seminar, if I can quote Tyler Durden there. It really does take a little bit of time to get into everything. But once you do, you can start to differentiate for yourself where the mainstream talking points don't seem to match up with the data and things of that nature.
So did it come out, I suppose, in the best interest? Like, where did the mainstream did it start to stray from the actual science?
When they started having to explain away why the planet wasn't warming the way they thought it was going to warm, or the way they had told us it was going to warm. Ever since the inception of the IPCC, which is the International Panel on Climate Change from the UN, they have basically been miserable failures when it comes to predicting the global temperatures. They have managed to correctly predict that we would be seeing more severe storms, worse floods, worse droughts in other areas. But that can be caused by a number of things, not just global warming and not just human influence. Yeah. And if I can take a moment to, preface what's going to come on this show with something I make sure I lay out for everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
I am no fan of pollution. It is poison, and if you know anything about the respiratory, neurological, and even endocrine disruption that and other kind of bodily harm that comes with man-made pollutants, you can't be a fan of it. And I'm certainly no fan of oil companies either. But our society globally is now being led down a path that is based on false information, and we are not preparing for the real dangers of climate change. Climate change is very real, and it's very, very different than what you hear, from the talking heads on the television, and especially from our president. It's just a completely different story. And I don't know, where would you guys like to dive into it, I suppose?
Well, I guess I have some personal questions because I've been trying to follow this a little bit, especially when we have guys like yourself coming on, or we've had other guests that can't comprehend that something might be different than what the mainstream is telling us. And even just the temperature difference in the last 20 years, like how do we even know what to believe there? Like you got some guys showing up charts and graphs that say, the temperatures, it's stagnant now over the last 20 years and it's really only raised like 0.4% or 0.4 of a degree. And then you got some people saying 0.8. Like what's really happened with the temperature in the last 20, 30 years for people? I think I'd like to start there and then maybe talk about this meme of the 97%, just to kind of give people that aren't familiar with this side of the story a little bit of,
Right.
facts and backgrounds.
Well, based on the best data that's available, and I know that a lot of people who are in the awake community, they don't like the official sources, but when it comes to looking at temperature, I look at NOAA, I look at NASA, I look at the European agency, which is called the Met Office.
Uh-huh.
I look at the IPS out of Australia, and all of those are pretty much matching up as well as they could possibly be. We had rapid warming up until about 18 years ago, And then we sort of started to plateau. And based on where you cherry pick the years in between then, we have done a bit of cooling since then. And of course, the rub there is that all predictions were that we would have runaway warming because carbon dioxide and other carbon emissions have continued to go up exponentially. Those have not plateaued or gone down. And so we're really seeing a disconnect between the carbon emissions and the temperature. And so now there are officially 42 or 43 different explanations for what they call the global warming pause. And this has caused such a stir in the community that they're now even getting the folks to try to convince some people that there has been no global warming pause. I was actually talking with a student yesterday at an event who was trying to claim that all these people were coming out and retracting their statements about a global warming pause. Well, it's great that they may want to do that, but the numbers say what the numbers say, and we have pretty much. We go up and down year to year, but we've really plateaued and had a pause in global warming starting about 17 or 18 years ago.
And you're going with NASA and NOAA and MET's data, so it's not like it's not like you're using some renegade data that's hasn't been.
No, the name of the game is I'll play the game the way they want it to be played. I'll use the facts they want to use, and I will show exactly what the truth is within there. It would be nice if we could have some sort of independent accounting of these numbers and this data.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, if you can play their game their way and still win, that's the best way to go.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do.
Absolutely. So speaking of NASA data, has there actually been manipulation of some of these numbers? Like we talked to,
Absolutely.
We talked to Dr. Don Easterbrook a few months back, and he was saying he still has charts from when he was doing this back in the 70s that show the actual temperatures that were the 30s were, and the 30s are still the hottest decade on record.
Absolutely. This really broke into the news when a man named Tony Heller, he goes by the pseudonym Stephen Goddard on the internet. He runs Real Science, which is a great website. He went back through the archives and he found the original charts, and he basically overlaid them on what they're currently using. And the temperatures matched for about the last 30 or 40 years or so, but the temperatures from the early part of the 1900s had been dropped. We're not talking about 0.4, 0.8. They were dropped like 2 or 3 whole degrees, basically turning a cooling trend into a warming trend. This was picked up by the Telegraph and a couple of other news sources. Of course, no big ones in this country, but it took NASA 7 days to get that old chart out of their archives, and they have now since removed it. But literally for 7 days, every day in the news, I was pointing people here, look, you can go see how they've changed it. And it was more than just NASA. It was NOAA and NASA doing it together. But yeah, that absolutely took place. And it's really just unfortunate that something like that actually happened, because it really makes you question a lot of the other information that you're seeing.
Yeah, and it's troubling too, because like even 30 years ago that would have been solid evidence. You've still got that old chart, but nowadays, in the days of Photoshop and everything else, and like another 5 years from now, that'll be a conspiracy theory that these charts never fucking existed.
Yeah, I'd like to share something with you guys that even the folks who are well versed on this topic probably don't know. And we'll start with something that is fairly common knowledge in academia. When you get a big paper that is submitted for publication, or you get one of these big government or UN reports, there's a couple of names as authors up at the top, and then in the acknowledgement paragraph way down on the last page at the bottom, you see dozens of names, everybody who helped out on the project.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really those folks who do a lot of the work in most cases. And when it comes to some of the IPCC reports, some of those folks were friends that I had made back when I was just starting. When I was just starting in university, I started at Penn State, and I was in the meteorology department. And I had many, many disagreements about how we forecast the weather. Nothing to do with climate change whatsoever, but I ended up leaving. They did not, however, and so they moved up, went through grad school, went through AccuWeather, and basically pipelined into the IPCC. And they were saying, they were telling me, because I kept in contact with these folks, that what we were hearing in the news and what was being published in the actual reports was not what the scientists were coming up with. And they were coming up with ideas like this warming is slowing down. We could be going into a plateau, maybe even cooling. Most of this is driven by the sun. Humans do play a role in this, and that should be given some amount of attention, certainly. But the real driver of the changes was the sun, and that the sun was looking like it was going to go pretty much to sleep, which we think it is going to do here for about 50 to 70 years, which could create a significant amount of global cooling. The problem is their conclusions were rejected, and they were basically told to go rewrite them. And if they didn't come down a certain way, they would have their funding pulled. They would lose their jobs. Now, this was a couple of years ago that they were telling me this. And since then, there has been an absolute flood of individuals coming out with similar stories. Because this name at the moment is escaping me, you'll have to forgive a click or two of mine, because I can find the name.
It's okay.
I can find the name in, kind of a snap of my fingers here. But at this point, professors from Yale, Princeton, and Harvard have all questioned the usefulness and the scientific integrity of the IPCC.
Wow.
And the name of the Harvard professor, which I'm going to get here in just 1 second, as soon as this page will load.
Is this part of that 33,000 kind of people coming forward, or however many that was?
Right. It started as the Senate Minority Report, where a couple hundred scientists were saying that, look, this global warming thing isn't what you say it is. And then later, there was a list of about 33,000 scientists, which is about 100 times more than the number of scientists that were used to come up with that 97% number. But we'll get to that in a second. The Harvard professor's name is Robert Stabbins, and they're basically saying that what is supposed to be summaries and reports for policymakers end up being summaries and reports by policymakers, such that the people who are, basically the political figureheads and the people pushing this one agenda basically get to tell them what to say, which is really unfortunate. And since then, we've seen a number of individuals quit the IPCC. And we're not talking about, just your random, this one scientist working on this one project. We're talking about one of the lead authors for the IPCC, Richard Toll, a leviathan of climate science, basically said, you guys have lost your way. This has become political propaganda. You guys aren't actually looking for the truth anymore. And so he quit. He joined a list of very distinguished individuals like John Coleman, the man who founded the Weather Channel, who sees the propaganda's lie for what it is. John Casey, who
I was going to ask about him.
Yeah, he worked for NASA. He worked for White House administrations. Really a genius. The European version of, basically, if you put John Coleman and John Casey together, there's a guy named Lennart Benson over in Europe, and he sees these things for what they are as well. You've got professors at Duke, at the University of Alabama, Huntsville, pretty much all over the country that are sort of losing their fear that something bad is going to happen to them. And it's not that that fear was unfounded. The stories are coming out also about people who have been bullied. I mean, literally, we're talking about adults bullying each other over just data, and talk about people getting their funding cut, people losing their jobs, people losing their positions in public policy groups and other NGOs and things like that. And it really has become a pretty vile thing. You had said you wanted to talk about the alleged consensus, and I sort of mentioned that 97% number. Essentially, to be counted as one of the people contributing to that, that figure, you had to be discussing climate change, specifically global warming, and you had to basically be somebody who was dedicated to that study only. And the only people who are really only dedicated to that work for the IPCC, and their paychecks come from money that is earmarked for just that purpose, just the purpose of convincing everyone about man-made global warming.
And that's where the 97% comes from. It's 97% of them?
Right, 97% of them. And the consensus actually is only that climate change is real and humans have played a role in it. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say humans play no role in this, or that climate change isn't real. It'd be like saying, 97% of people think that the air is breathable and that humans do it. It's like, well, yeah, nobody's arguing against that point.
It's the scale that's
exactly, it's the scale. And so when you look at just how bad their predictions have been, I mean, dismal failures for nearly 2 decades, that's where we sort of picked up and started to look for an explanation. What were they missing? Not to kind of say, oh, see, this is all nonsense. There's no climate problem. Let them pollute all they want. No, that's not the point of this at all. The point is, climate change is very real. There's evidence throughout history that climate change has had enormous impacts on society and civilizations. And it'd be really great if we could sort of shore up our loose ends here and figure out where this all went wrong over the last 2 decades. And that's pretty much where we put our foot in the door and go from there.
Well, it sounds like there's hope then. I mean, when I hear you talk about this sort of, exodus of scientists, it sounds like there is some hope, and this kind of house of cards has got to come down eventually. It's just like is this some of the reason why that thing in Lima, Peru recently was kind of stalled? I mean, is it coming to the point now where they're not going to get any resolution because nobody really knows what to believe anymore?
I wish I could say I knew what exactly was going on behind the scenes down in Lima, because I honestly thought that was just going to go one way. And it turned out that there was a lot of opposition to what has been the prevailing propaganda for 2 decades, more than 2 decades now. In terms of, being encouraged by some of the things I see, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I'm very encouraged that we have giants of climate science coming out and saying, no, this is not what they have been telling us now for years and years and years. But at the same time, it seems like that has caused them to spend more and push more, and basically label anyone who goes against what they say some kind of denier.
Yeah.
Don't be a denier.
Yeah. It's their new catchword, just like the CIA made conspiracy a dirty word years ago, to try to get people to think all these conspiracy theories are nonsense. These people are all crazy. That was actually a direct psychological operation, or psyop, by the CIA back then.
And it's worked wonders.
It's worked wonders. And now they're trying to do the exact same thing here with the denier term.
Yeah, and
It's
people believe the TV, the mainstream, the news, all that stuff. It's hard for people to get people to look at the other side of everything.
Yeah, well, do you remember what it was like before you quote woke up? Um,
Yeah,
no, it's literally like being in a different world, really, and you don't think the same way. You that which you trust and that which you approach with suspicion is completely different on before and after you wake up. And so, in some way, I kind of understand why it's so difficult for people to get into this. There's a lot of normalcy bias, uh, things
Yeah.
like that.
I've had a problem though with global warming since I was a kid. That's one thing. That's one of the things that I just never really. Even when I was a kid, I was like, I don't know, that seems fucked up.
It, I wish I could say that I saw it for what it is. I'm not too proud to admit my mistakes. I used the denier term as recently as 2010. I believed this hook, line, and sinker.
Huh.
And then what I was trying to do actually was to go in and debunk the so-called deniers and the people who were saying that the planet was going to get cooler. Because what I did when I say I was in professional research, I was in due diligence, which is essentially due diligence is the research that goes into investments. And you talk about, oh, professors doing this or governments doing research that. Believe me, when there's millions of dollars of investment on the line, that is about as difficult as it gets in terms of pressure, because you not only have the data, but it's interdisciplinary. You want to invest in something, you have to do all the research on the economics, the legal aspect, and then become an expert in whatever the hell you're investing in. If that's a pharmaceutical company, you better know your biology and chemistry. If it's a mining operation, you better know your physics and your geology. Uh, and on top of all of that, somebody's trying to get money from you, so you have to be able to sniff through BS as well. And I this is really what I'm trained for. I'm not really trained to do anything else. And when I went after that goal of trying to debunk those folks, I found out that they were the ones telling the truth, that global warming was not what we had been told. And if you're honest with yourself about what the signs say, if you have the ears to hear, so to speak, you can really see the trends that this planet could get very, very cold very soon.
yeah. Well, I want to get into that in a bit.
It seems crazy. Like, how does it get to the point that like 90% of the public, or at least 75, is believing that if 33,000 scientists have signed this petition, then that means that a million and a half other scientists are saying it's bullshit.
Yeah,
We're not far removed from denying man-made climate change and global warming being a crime.
So it seems like, or what do you think about how this started? Did they just see this trend of global warming like 20 years ago and just try and capitalize on it? Or was it going to happen no matter what? Like, it seems like the climate kind of kicked them in the ass, right? They tried to take advantage of this warming trend, and then it just, as soon as that happened, it stopped warming.
yeah. Well, I mean, anybody who was either around back in the 70s or has tried to go back to see what was written back in the 70s, they were talking about the next ice age coming soon.
Yeah.
And they were talking about it coming after a multi-decade warming of the planet. So far, those folks are still on track. In terms of what your question was, it was a combination of things. You have people like Al Gore, who were so heavily invested in that company that was going to benefit from the carbon trading, or like the carbon credits. He would have been one of the richest people in the world within years if he had gotten his way. No conflict of interest there. On the other side, there appears to be this meme in amidst the elites, and you can see some of this back in their Vancouver meeting from the 80s. They're talking about how the human race needs to kind of all get on the same page and move towards something. This would be kind of like that thing Reagan said about how quickly all our differences would disappear if an alien civilization came.
Yeah.
Well, that he said that, and it was true, because that would threaten everybody and everything in our way of life, and we'd have to come together to do it. And chances are, if we could all come together, that would be a good thing for our species. This is kind of like that, but of course, you have people like Al Gore. And I've mentioned his name now twice. There's really dozens, maybe even hundreds of names I could mention, and so they're trying to do their best to take advantage of the situation as well. They don't like letting disasters go to waste. They like picking up the scraps and buying when there's blood on the street, as Lord Rothschild once said.
So let's get into a bit of the science then, and what you're talking about. How if you look at the long-term patterns of the sun cycles, I'm going to link to this video in our show notes because it was pretty fascinating. Very, very good overview of the sun and how it plays a part in climate change. And it looks like we're entering into like a Maunder minimum or something like that. Is that what it's showing?
Absolutely. The simplified version is the sun goes through about a 400-year grand cycle. We've seen one in the past that we think was closer to 600 years. Maybe there was one that was about 350, but for the most part, it's about a 400-year grand cycle. Mm-hmm. And that is a much longer cycle than an 11-year cycle that the sun has, where it increases in activity and decreases in activity. But that tiny little 11-year cycle follows a much larger 400-year cycle. And what happens is we have this grand solar minimum where the sun is very, very inactive. And then it slowly starts to pick up its activity until it reaches a peak, and then it drops off very, very quickly into another minimum. And so just looking at the current grand solar cycle that we are in, it began with the last grand solar minimum in the 1600s and early 1700s, which was the coldest and worst part of the last mini ice age, or the little ice age. And it slowly increased in activity, peaking about 2 decades ago. And then all of a sudden, activity started to plummet. And, we have only been directly observing solar activity via sunspots or whatever for about the last 400 years. But through ice cores and through a number of other means, we can do a really good job reconstructing the last 11 or 12,000 years. And what they're seeing is that we are in the midst of some of the most extreme solar swings that we have ever had record of. So, for example, from about 1940 to the mid-1990s was the highest solar activity of this grand cycle, the 400-year cycle, right during global warming. And as if that wasn't enough of a coincidence, we can't find any time in our thousands of years of reconstruction where the sun was more active. So literally, during that time of the most global warming, the sun was the most active it had been in thousands of years.
So you're saying our CO2 is getting to the sun somehow?
I've actually had people ask me how our pollution could possibly be affecting the sun. I mean, that was literally where their mind went. It's amazing how well they've trained these people, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
But what's interesting is right at that time, when the sun decided to stop its major activity, it began plummeting very, very quickly. In fact, most of the solar scientists who look back through the data say that the sun is now weakening faster than at any time in the last 9,300 years, so 9,300. And that time they pinpoint when the sun began to weaken, that's exactly the time of the global warming pause began. We're talking like within weeks to months. The sun stops its major activity and starts hitting the floor, and all of a sudden we get a global warming pause. It's a fascinating coincidence.
So do we have the ability to go back any farther than that? Like any farther than 10 or 12,000 years? Like is there any way of gauging like even a full precessional cycle?
Not when it comes to solar activity. That's probably pretty difficult. But we may not even really need to do that. That would be a great little tool to have in the bag. But you could just look around our solar system at what's happening. I have spent many hours and I have many videos on what I call the solar system shift. If you take what we have come to think of as constants for the other planets in our solar system, these things have all begun to change rapidly to the point where we can honestly and truly say that at this point, if you were to have a how's your planet doing contest in our solar system, Earth would win. Venus is changing so much faster than Earth, it'll make your head spin. Same with Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. We have some suspicions about Mercury, Pluto, and Neptune, but it's a little bit harder to tell. You want to take a look at energetic or climate changes like that, and that's really what a lot of climate change gets down to is the energy budget of Earth. How much energy we receive, how much we reflect, things like that. How much is, put into feedback loops. The fastest winds on Earth have increased about 3 or 4%. On Venus, that number is 33%. During the period when Earth was warming, Mars was warming faster. The great red spot on Jupiter is dying. Red Junior was born, and it lost an entire planetary cloud stripe. All planets also put out this radio frequency, and that is very, very stable, except that Jupiter just decided to change its a couple of years ago.
Wow.
There's been a 30-year superstorm that comes every time Saturn gets to its closest point on the sun. Saturn has a 30-year orbit. We've been able to watch this with telescopes for hundreds of years. For the first time in our observational history, it just arrived 10 years early, was twice as strong as it was supposed to be, and lasted way too long. This would be like a Category 6 hurricane hitting the U.S. East Coast on January 1st and lasting through the summer.
Huh.
Uranus, we have seen unbelievable storm activity, increased auroral activity. And so basically, we have the Earth doing better somehow than all these other planets. And as you probably won't be surprised to hear, I have had people ask me how our pollution gets out to the other planets.
It's reverse gravity. It's kind of like reverse osmosis.
Yeah.
So
you just have to laugh.
What do we seriously account that to, though? Is that all based on solar activity, or is it because I guess you got to take into account that our solar system's always moving through space too? Like I wonder if any sort of fluctuations in our path can fuck shit up.
Well, the amount of galactic cosmic radiation that gets into the solar system is directly related to solar activity. Because what the sun is pumping out is electromagnetic material. And so when the sun is pumping out hard, it's like it enhances the shield of our entire solar system. Most people know that Earth has a magnetic shield that wraps around it. It's called the magnetosphere. Well, the solar system has one too, called the heliosphere, made by the sun. And that weakens as the sun weakens. And what that shields our solar system against is galactic cosmic radiation. And just a quick tidbit, we don't really have time to get into this. If you Google cosmic rays, global cooling, you'll have your hands full trying to get through all the information. And so what we're really seeing, in addition to a lack of heat and other forms of energy coming from the sun, we have an increase in the amount of galactic cosmic radiation, which it's getting to the point where this is just about settled science. Those things will create more clouds, reflect more light, and cause global cooling.
And so that affects them, like the sun, the inactivity of the sun, maybe. And then how long is that minimum supposed to go for? Like in the modern minimum, is that going to be a couple decades or supposedly, or?
Right, probably 50 to 70 years is our best guess. And
that
so
sucks.
the thing to remember is this is a mini ice age. People don't tend to hear the mini. for example, the last time we had one of these, people that looked like me crossed the Atlantic and made 13 colonies here. Stuff gets done. It's not the end of the world. However, those individuals were not in a globalized system. They did not grow and ship food all around the planet. They knew how to sustain themselves. They knew how to live with the land. You could have dropped those settlers on any beach or any coastline in the world. They would have survived. How many people could you say that for today? And so what you're going to see is it's still going to get warm, maybe even hot during the summertime. That doesn't go away. The issue is that these polar vortex events become more prevalent and they become more extreme to the point where you get terrible, terrible winters, and you even begin to get winter-like activity interlaced in the summertime. The Great Lakes didn't unfreeze until halfway through July this past year. There's evidence that at some point soon they won't unfreeze at all. And, when we get to that point, we'll have a summer snowstorm that takes out literally entire states worth of crops. The United States doesn't export food that year, maybe. Maybe wars break out all over the world over food and other things like that. We're seeing these signs everywhere. I mean, what happened during November was absolutely ridiculous. December started a little bit warmer, and it was supposed to be a really warm December, but that hasn't really come to fruition. The Mobile Observatory is in Shreveport, Louisiana right now, and it is ridiculously cold. Way, way too cold.
It's nice and warm here in Calgary. It's like 0 degrees. So can you talk? I just want to touch on something quickly before we run out of time. The Carrington event was I think it was in the 1800s or something like that. And then what was that, and what would happen now, or would you see that happening and give us a day or two warning with the amount of watching the sun you do?
I can put my cell phone in a Faraday cage.
Yeah, do you have an app for us that we can use?
Well, if we get a Carrington-like event today, you might not need the internet to hear me screaming at the top of my lungs. Okay. Literally, the entire world just may hear me screaming as loud as I can. Essentially, what happened is in 1859, the sun unleashed a solar flare and an ejection of electromagnetic particles that was so powerful it set telegraph wires and telegraph offices on fire. It shocked operators. And these type of things only happen maybe once every couple hundred years or so. And you're only really vulnerable if you are reliant on electricity. So human beings have lived through, we tend to call them mega flares. Some people online call them solar kill shots. Humans have lived through these dozens of times, maybe hundreds of times, just they didn't use electricity. And so if this were to happen today, it could literally take out power all across the globe. And I don't mean the kind of thing where you go and you reset the switch. I mean, wires melt, transformers blow, and we are 10, 20 years from getting society back out of the dark ages. And if it were to happen, within 24 hours, there's no food at the store. There's no gasoline. There's no phone to call for help. There's no heat. There's no air conditioning. At some point within 48 hours, the pumps that bring you your city water will fail. Your pumps that if you have a well on your property and your pump is electric, it will have failed immediately. And so basically, you're talking about years of living off of just what you've got with you. And all the other people in the exact same boat all around you. And if bad people do bad things in desperate times, that's for sure.
Yeah. And how much warning would we get if you saw that happening?
That's the kind of thing I wouldn't wait for. I wouldn't wait for the next morning to do the news. The moment I saw it happen, I would be screaming on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, pretty much any possible way I could, getting the word out. Worst case scenario, from flare to arrival at Earth could be
minutes.
Well, that's how long the electromagnetic radiation takes. The actual particles take a bit longer, And at worst, they could arrive in hours.
Wow.
Most CMEs take 2 to 5 days to arrive. We get one that takes less than 2 days, and we end up getting a big geomagnetic storm from it. But it's possible that this could happen in less than a day. And so, if you've got ample warning, hopefully you can go to the store or maybe get some supplies or do something. It's really just a better idea to have that stuff ready to go, because the kind of prepping that you'd want for that is a lot of the same kind of prepping you'd want for,
zombie apocalypse.
A zombie apocalypse, a terribly cold winter. It's just all reasons to prep, and have some kind of plan in case stuff goes wrong.
What if we got our back to it? Are we okay if it's like fucking up Europe?
Well, here's the thing. These are global events. The magnetosphere deflects, that magnetic shield I was talking about will deflect most of it. But the charged particles will pour in from the polar regions. The blackouts will start at high latitude all over the planet, and then they'll make their way towards the equator. It doesn't matter if it's noon or midnight. When that CME hits, the effects are going to be similar all over the world.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's like fucking Atlantis all over again.
Yeah.
I got to ask you this. Have you seen anything, since you spent so much time looking at the sun too and all that, have you seen anything unexplainable at all? Any weird stuff happening there? I know there was some crazy UFO conspiracies going around that there was this craft like sucking energy from the sun or something like that.
Yeah, that one was a little bit of a false thing.
Yeah,
that's called coronal cavity, and it's one of the things they actually built the satellite to detect. It actually doesn't detect them as well as they wanted, and if you look, you can actually see things like that every day. The one that made news was just an exceptional example. I've seen a lot of things that I can't explain in terms of the disproportionate amount of solar eruptions that take place at certain longitudes on the sun. Some of the way that the sunspots behave. It's a lot of complex stuff that makes me think that what actually is the high level, difficult to understand solar science may not have all the answers that they think they have at this point. The biggest worry, in addition to the climate stuff, and this will be a good thing to kind of close on, is the fact that we just got word on the 16th that Earth's magnetic changes are continuing on the path that they've been continuing on. And if you haven't heard, Earth's magnetic shield, our magnetosphere, is weakening very, very quickly, and it's happening at the exact same time that our poles are shifting. That has begun. It is underway, and we could be literally just years or at most decades away from seeing a magnetic failure and pole shift on the planet, which could, needless to say, that would not be something fun to live through.
No. Could be the only survivors of that could be South America and Africa. The people that don't have technology, like Graham Hancock would say, right? Egypt. All the bright spots in the world at night would not make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your plan then in the next little while? Are you continuing your mobile observatory? Are you going to have to take a bit of a break for your baby?
Absolutely. I'm working on getting a paper published right now, and I'm going to work on getting a few more published. I worked with the statistics department from the Ohio State University and Dr. Kongpop Uyen from NASA, although he did this work outside of his official NASA capacity, and they didn't have anything to do with the study, basically proving the link between solar activity and earthquakes.
Wow.
And so basically the sun's effect on Earth and taking care of my little baby when it's born will be my primary objectives going forward, and making sure we're ready in case any of this bad stuff happens soon.
No kidding.
We'd like to really thank you for taking some time out here around the holidays and joining us on the show, Ben. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or some places people can track you down before we let you go?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to Google and you start typing in suspicious observers, you will not get through the word suspicious before Google guesses you're looking for me. We got a free show on YouTube every single morning. I do mean every morning. I don't take weekends or holidays off because the Earth and the Sun do not take weekends or holidays off.
Wow.
So we do this every day. There's 207,000 of us. We're keeping our eye on the planet, having our eyes open, that kind of stuff. And I really appreciate you guys inviting me on and letting me share some of this stuff with you and those who listen.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, and we appreciate what you do. And I would look forward to checking your daily little news story out. That's great.
Absolutely.
And you can give us a Grimerican exclusive when that CME's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll broadcast from the gates of hell. Broadcast into the gates of hell.
Yeah. If that flare occurs in our direction, I will be basically pasted to my laptop for hours on end. So,
good job.
Okay, Ben. Have a good holiday.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Take care. And welcome back to the Grimerica Show. That was our chat with Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers and the Mobile Observatory.
Mobile Observatory. I like the looks of that thing.
Yeah, pretty cool, eh?
Pimped out RV, yeah. That'll be the, you can see it in your pod player right now. Actually, that's what I used.
Oh, did you?
There's a picture of, Ben and his wife in front of the pod thing. And it should be, actually, I think it should have the new artwork too. Lisa, my wife, is going to start doing adding some Grimerica to the pictures for us. So it'll say, cool. Grimerica or in Grimerica or something.
Yeah.
That was close.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was just looking on his website right now, and it's got today's news. It's a big solar flare, jet stream shifting, and he's got an update every day there, like 5 minutes of real weather news. No propaganda. I like that.
Does he have it for Calgary? Is it going to keep Chinookin tomorrow?
I don't think it's, no, I don't think we're serious. There's enough going on here for his attention. So anyways, what did you think, Darren?
I liked it.
Pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got his shit together.
Yeah, we want to thank the listener. I don't have who recommended them on the top of my head.
I think it was Hank. I think it was Hank Scorpio.
Maybe. Yeah. So that was great, man. And listeners, if you guys have people you want us to talk to or whatever, it's great. Like most of those topics we love anyway. So
yeah, and if we don't respond to you, that doesn't mean we're not I don't think I even told Hank. This will be Hank doesn't even know yet. It'll just be like, bang, there's a guest he asked for.
Yeah, yeah, and we try to respond to all the emails, but it gets hard to keep track of, and I get mixed up all the time too. So,
but we read them all.
We read them all.
So your guest might just pop on, and hey, if you got time, you really want someone on. I mean, if you can take down the trouble of getting their email address or something like that for us and sending that over, that definitely helps the process, because then we can just kind of do it right there. Click, email, away we go, as opposed to ending up on the to-do list.
Yeah, man. Even Alex X Skeptical was even saying that sometimes he's had listeners like book guests for him too. That's been pretty cool. So don't be shy. It's a challenge keeping up on all this stuff.
Yeah, but we'll take care of the dates.
Yeah. So, yeah, we want to thank Ben for coming on and wish his new family well, and hope his science keeps going on. Science and the unbiased news keeps going on, and more people find out.
He said he'll let us know when the flare's coming too. So that's a reason to keep an eye on suspicious observers. That's right there, because that'll be your first fucking warning when the fucking flare is coming.
Yeah. So I'll link to all this stuff in the
So
show
you can
notes.
put your iPhone in a Faraday cage.
That's right.
I got a generator. Does that need to be in a Faraday cage? Just wrap that fucker in tin foil.
I have no idea.
Aluminum
Probably,
foil.
if it's electrical, right?
Go. I can go.
Yeah.
Fuck, I better start downloading some podcasts now.
Yeah, I guess. All you've got is your charged up iPhone and a bunch of podcasts listening.
Yeah. 60 gigs of podcasts. 46. No.
Yeah, it's almost like my phone.
No, I don't even. Yeah, there you go.
So anyways, want to thank everybody for listening and send your feedback and spam and synchronicities and psychedelic experiences to Graham at Grimerica.com. That's Graham at Grimerica.com. And you can tell Darren he's the shit at Grimerica.
Yeah,
That's a Twitter account, right?
Yeah. Sign up for the newsletter. Justin puts a lot of hard work into that. Grimerica.ca/news. And of course, we don't do any ads here, and we count on your support. And you can find out all about how to support the show at Grimerica.ca/moneybomb. We are still running the $25 donation for a T-shirt. If you want a T-shirt and you've donated over $25, I think only one person actually put in the subject line, sent him a shirt. So we sent him a shirt. But we've had a couple other donations that didn't say shirt. So if you guys want a shirt, just shoot Graham an email, let him know, and we'll get that sent off to you.
Yeah.
And of course, it is right after the holidays. A lot of you can't afford to donate, maybe. Here's another way to support the show. Right now, go to iTunes, give us a review, or Stitcher, or anything. And that means just as much.
Yeah. And if you want an email address, Grimerica email,
Then you gotta
Joe Blow
subscribe.
at Grimerica. Then, $5 a month. Darren will give you that.
Bingo bango. See you guys next week.